Hi guys and girls, happy Sunday. Got a very, very special guest with us this evening, Tim Stewart from Tim Stewart Architects. Timmy, how are you, mate?
Great, nice to be here.
Yes, thanks very much for coming along. So I know this has been highly anticipated, so if you do feel free, this is a Q&A tonight. We've had some questions asked of us since we've been promoting this, and also, as I've mentioned before, questions that have come through to me for an architect and Tim in particular over the last couple of months. So it's a great opportunity for you to ask your questions, and if you've got anything to say afterwards, obviously please feel free to to ask them. But if it's a bit interactive tonight, so if you are sitting there and have anything to ask, Tim's here to answer those questions. So guys, Tim Stewart, one of Brisbane, if not Brisbane's best architects, doing a lot of great stuff at the moment. If you're driving around the suburbs, most of the inner city suburbs. I mean, Tim just pointed one out from my house here down in Auchenflower and Owen Lane that he did. So they're quite prominent and great product. So and doing a fair bit of stuff with great clients of mine. The Greyer Construction guys. So there's some very good product coming onto the market there. So Tim started Tim Stewart Architects 7 years ago. Prior to that, he was with Base Architecture for 5 years. He graduated in the year 2000 with 5 years experience. So as he was explaining to me before, back then you did your experience and study at the same time. Look, he's done 70 odd plus residential houses in that time period. So there's a number of properties being done in that time, and 30 odd commercial residences and commercial premises, sorry. And look, I couldn't speak highly enough of Tim. He's doing one of my personal projects, or Sam and mine and my business partners' projects at the moment. So, and he will, just chatting before, he will be doing our house when we decide to build.
Looking forward to it.
So Sam will be dealing with Tim, and they'll be designing the house. I won't have anything to do with that. So I'll leave it to the Brains Trust. And look, Tim's goes a lot to say. Look, his average build cost on his projects is anywhere 1.25, 1.5 million plus. So he is in that sort of marketplace of the higher end properties around Brisbane. So again, please feel free to ask those questions away. And I believe, Sam, you've got some questions to start us off tonight that came through during the week.
Yeah, so we've had a question that's come through from Carol for Tim.
Hi Carol, how are you?
What do you think are the changes that you have seen in the last 5 or so years in housing?
Right, okay, in the last 5 or so years, I think if I can answer that if I just preempt that by saying we see the trends in housing coming through by the fact that we're sitting with people day in, day out who are coming to us, asking us or telling us what they want in their house. So they're giving us a brief and they're telling us exactly what they want, and that comes a little bit from their own experience, knowing exactly how they want to live, but also a lot from seeing things around. Most people come to us having done a bit of research and that sort of thing. So, but what we do see is trends developing in these briefs. So often they're very similar, but they're changing slowly over time. So there's been a bit of an evolution, I guess, in what people ask for. If we go, so you've asked for in the last 5 years. If we go back even further than that, for instance, just to make a quick example, sort of 10, 15 years ago when I was doing houses, the main bedrooms and living rooms main bedrooms and en-suites were quite small. Now the master suite is the really big impact thing in a lot of houses. So that's continuing to evolve. And so in the last five years, more specifically, I think we're starting to see a continued emphasis on the outdoor space with better outdoor kitchens. So I think the outdoor deck, it's always been a big part of Brisbane and Queensland culture, but now we're starting to see people really wanting to experience that with proper, really good quality kitchens outdoors. So that's been a big experience. So introducing drinks fridges and better music and AV integration in those sorts of spaces. I think one of the other things we're starting to see is more or less most of the high-end houses now. Once you get to sort of 4 bedrooms plus a guest room, we're seeing an ensuite introduced into the guest room a lot. So it's very rare if we're doing a larger house that the guest room doesn't also have an ensuite. And then slowly we're also starting to see all the other bedrooms get an ensuite. So it's not unusual for us now to do a house where every bedroom is ensuite. And that will develop as well, but for the time being, what's happening is that idea of this large main bathroom that your guest might see, well, that's sort of disappearing because we're designing the houses so that from an entertaining perspective, the powder room is in the public space, and that's likely the only bathroom your guest is going to see. So if each bedroom has a small ensuite, and then you make a real feature of that powder room, that's one of those things. And then the number one, I think, in the last 5 years that's been huge is butlers' pantries. Butlers' pantries,
couldn't agree
large
more.
pantries, everyone wants one of those at the moment. And for good reason, and people are starting to come to what we see is a bit of variation in those. I think in another 5 years they'll be fairly similar. People are trying to come to terms with, is that the space where I want to cook? So do I need my sink and ovens and that back there, and a duplicate kitchen, or is that just where I want to hide my messy dishes at the end of the night? So I think we're going to see a bit more clarity on that. But one thing's for sure is it's not going away, and it's becoming important. So our kitchens are really large and really well spec.
It's really the hub of the house, isn't it? It's really the entertaining. And just writing some notes there, Tim, on your comments to Carol's question. You know, en-suites in all the bedrooms. You know, and then, you know, obviously that visitor's room or that extra bedroom. I guess that's sort of indicative of where the market's going, and what I'm sort of seeing is, you know, you've got parents that want to stay and spend time with the grandkids. You've got kids that leave home and then come home, or, you know, people staying home longer than usual. So a lot of children out there that are, you know, a lot older and want their independence. So we are seeing that when we go onto market. So exactly what Tim's saying, most of the new houses, and I do sell a lot in that higher end and in the top end, you know, that are brand new, that are newly built, exactly what you're saying.
So I think that's a good cover. I mean, if I could just add one more, that the void space and the really high ceiling. I mean, we're starting to experience that through as a briefing idea from most people now, that they want to see that, have that wow space. I mean, but it should be more than a wow space. It should be something that connects the house together and works sort of climatically as well. But that's important. I mean, you've got all these other things we're adding on, better outdoor kitchens, butlers' pantries, more bathrooms. We're not forgetting the living space. As a rule, things are just getting nicer, sharper. People are wanting all those features in their house. So.
Fantastic. No, thanks very much. I hope that answers your question, Carol. And as we always say, please give us a private message if we can help more.
All right, next question is from Robert for Tim again.
Yep.
How do you go about developing a brief for renovation or new home project?
Right. Yeah. Well. It's an important question because if you're going to get into a new project, whether it be a new build or a renovation, I mean, you have to brief it properly. I mean, if you haven't spent time on the brief, you're going to get halfway through the project and suddenly start again because you haven't worked that out. So obviously, there's a list of must-haves in a new house. I mean, and that usually starts with the mundane, which is how many bedrooms do I need? But past that point, you need to start asking yourself, well, how do I want to live in this house? Start auditing your own lifestyle, and, you know, do I want a sort of a good dining room that I'm going to take people and have that sort of meal, or are we casual? Do we spend our time just around the kitchen bench and that's less important? Do I actually spend a lot of time outside, or do I just think I do? And do I need the inside bigger? Do I work from home? Do I want to do work from home? How do I set up my office? So it's a pretty pragmatic list up front as to what you need. But then the big one, the number one thing that we deal with in our practice is how does that list of everything I want actually fit with my budget?
Yep.
So that's an important one, and you need just to start understanding the cost of building, and that list of for your brief needs to be what is an absolute and what is a nice to have, and then start. You might need to take advice from someone like yourself, or if you come to us, we'll give you that advice. Which are the first things, if I'm thinking about resale, do I keep, and which are the things that I drop off? So it might be that seller that you desperately want. The home office is more important. So so you've got to develop your brief that way, and look for an understanding of the cost. And then if it's a new build or a renovation, what's the site going to offer you? What's the renovations tend to be more difficult in that regard. You often end up with a piece of a house which might not quite suit you, but you have to keep for character purposes or something like that. But look, all I can say, if you're going to start developing your brief, make sure you know what you must have, make sure you know what it's like to have, and then start getting some further advice and understanding how that works with your budget. Yeah,
that's what I was going to touch on too, Tim, was the individuality, and so if someone comes to you with that brief and it suits that family, suits that client, that's their dream home, but how often do you have to rein it in and go, hey guys, what if you go to sell this house? It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Do you just try and find that happy medium, happy mix? Because, some people might just go throw it out the door going, we're never selling. But, you always wanted to have, you might need to refinance. I mean, we had Adam Burke on here last week about refinancing your homes or best home loans. So I'm interested to know, do people care about, even though they mightn't be intending to sell their house, do they care about, the sellability to hit that market?
I think nearly always the answer is yes. I mean, from time to time we do have people who just don't care. But it is important for most people that they don't, that whilst if you're going to do your dream project, you might not be able to sell it the day you finish building it and make a profit.
Correct.
Right? That's the reality.
Yep.
If you're going to put everything you want into that, and it's going to be, it's probably not going to be a perfect commercial project.
Yep.
But you want to make sure that if things change, if something turns around, that you haven't got yourself so far in a hole that you're going to be in desperate strife. So we do advise people on what we understand that the market wants, and we try to incorporate that within what sort of unique or unusual requests they have, so that that just becomes a character of the building and not a defining moment of the whole building is this crazy sort of thing. So it's very rare that we get a crazy unusual brief, but it happens from time to time.
They're out there.
Well, I once worked on a project that was a tennis pavilion and master bedroom that was about $3 million, and there was no house to it. It was just an extension to the main house, and that's never going to return money. But
they're happy.
If you're in that position, fantastic.
I think that's the last of their worries.
All right, we've got the next question from Tommy, which we've sort of touched on already.
Yep. Hi, Tommy. How are you?
What would you say are the must-haves for an inner-city home?
Oh, must-haves.
Must-haves.
Yeah. So, if we're talking from a market point of perspective, I guess is a good place to talk about it. I think a must-have is a really good sense of space, sense of flow to the layout of your house.
I agree.
I think you can talk about, you should have a cellar, or you should have a media room, or you should have this. Not so important that when you walk into that house, that first feel, is this house, is it light and airy, and can I flow from room to room? Does it feel open, or do I, that's number one. So, but after that, then comes the more pragmatic things. But I think pretty much no one that I speak to these days doesn't want 4 bedrooms. So whether or not 4 people need it, I don't. That land is such a premium that you can't afford to put a sort of a 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom house on a block of land these days if you're doing something major. So you need at least the 4th bedroom, but you have to have a pool, you have to have the outdoor space, you have to have the butler's pantry as we touched on. But mate, all of that is wasted if you've got a rabbit warren and it feels dark and cold and not airy, it doesn't take advantage of this great climate we have.
Yeah.
So
it's a beautiful part of the world.
I think you could go into the most specced up house, and if it doesn't feel like you're living in Brisbane and with this fantastic climate, then what's the point? So
exactly.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, guys, too, if you are enjoying this tonight, finding it useful, please feel free to like, share it, tag your friends in it, because you may have a friend at the moment that, you know, isn't subscribed or following my page or following Tim's, and they may get some use out of it. So please feel free, while we are talking here tonight, to you know, hit that share button and like what you're hearing as well, if you push that like button.
All right, so the next question is from Linda for Tim again.
Hey Linda, how are you?
Linda?
What would you consider to be the next level items that a higher end style home might need to incorporate?
Right, yeah, so no, that flows on nicely from what we were speaking about.
Yes.
I think I mentioned it in the last one. You know, probably the first thing that gets taken away if you're, you know, dealing with budget or things are getting a bit too much are the cellar and the media room and the ensuite guest bedroom. But so if you go into that next level, you can't go without the ensuite guest bedroom now.
Correct.
I don't think you can go without the media room once you get to a certain level, and also the wine cellar. And wine cellar, I mean, that's a flexible term. We don't always build a full climate controlled wine cellar. Sometimes we arrange a series of wine fridges in a space so that you get that wine storage, but everyone wants some sort of wine storage just about these days, and it's a nice little feature to the home.
And it doesn't blow the budget, does it, Tim? Like that, those, as you said, they're great features.
Yeah.
You know, and I know Rob and the team at Grey Construction do it a lot, but you know, it doesn't cost. You know, it doesn't, but it adds like it is a really great feature to the home.
Yeah, I think so. If you use it as a device that adds to the home, for sure, it's a great feature. It doesn't always have to blow the budget. What you have to be, particularly something like a cellar, is something you can fit in. It's not too large. Where you run into trouble by adding is if you're trying to do a house on a fairly small lot, and you try and cram too much on that lot. Well, that number one thing that I said was light and space and flow. That can start to be at the detriment of adding in another room and another one of these and another one of that. So you've got to be careful about that.
Yeah.
But I think at that level, those things, voids, absolutely, and something that's a little bit less obvious. I mean, really high quality lighting.
Yep.
And the ability to kind of change the mood of that house at night. Sun control, so that during the day you can entertain in all your spaces. It doesn't get too hot. I think those are kind of more integrated to the design, and the quality of the design is just making sure the comfort of the house. I mean, if you're going high end and someone comes around to buy that house and it's hot, or it's a beautiful day but they've had to close up the doors and jam the air conditioning on because the orientation's not right and the sun shading's not good, well, that's going to take away that feel of that house right away. So, there's the tick boxes of cellar and media and that sort of thing, but quality of the design, the comfort of the house, that's really important in a high-end house.
I'll add to that. So will you say for instance this was a vacant block of dirt, and you will be designing a home where we are sitting right now. Would you go to the block or the site at various times of the day just to get a feel of the location? Because obviously, it's your job to get that design right. Is that what you're relying on the owners?
No. We have to take responsibility for all those aspects ourselves. So obviously we work in collaboration with the owner, but I need to get an understanding of that. But as well as that, we model the block and the neighbours, and we use computer programming to run sun studies and those sorts of things on all our projects. So we have to get a really good understanding that we're not going to absolutely overheat the house with west-facing glass in summer. That's important. It's not always easy, but if you talk about a block like this, you've got views, and they might not necessarily be perfect to the northeast, which is your best aspect. So they may face west. It happens a lot. River sites, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So you have to learn to deal with those western facing views in a pretty smart way, or otherwise, you know, you walk in the house, it's too bright, it's too hot, it's it doesn't feel homely.
So you get a really good understanding. Go out there, look at the site, and you know, I suppose doing it for, and this is why it's so important, guys. You know, guys and girls out there to have someone as experienced and with a good name like Tim, you know, to give you all this advice, because the last thing you want to do is, you know, go and spend your hard-earned money and then, you know, find out that your back deck's, you know, work out that you've designed the whole place wrong, your back deck and your main bedroom's west, and, you know, as Tim's can't use it, you don't want to go out there. As you said that, look, you know, it is tricky, because I know, look, I don't do a lot in those parts of Brisbane, but, you know, the Bulimbas and the Hawthorns and that, they seem to face, you know, on the river there especially, they face west, so are they some of the challenges that you got to try and work around, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely, they're challenges, because you know, you can't just block that out. You need to stop the sun coming in, but you can't stop the view looking out.
Yeah.
There are ways of doing that. They're not always straightforward, and they do involve an investment in the right type of products and blinds and devices and design to get there. So you can't really cut corners on those things. But if you do, you'll pay dearly.
Yeah.
You know, there's other aspects of a site too you need to consider. You talk about Bulimba. There's some areas of Bulimba that get a lot of aircraft noise.
Yeah.
And how do you kind of have a house that has a nice open outdoor flow and controls that aircraft noise? So there's certainly ways to do that, but they become the far more complex things about a project, and they'll take time and effort to resolve.
Great. Now, I've just got a couple of questions for Tim, and as I said, guys, feel free to ask them if they come through. Mate, I was thinking, look, what about building materials? What is your approach to the type of materials you use in your homes, and what do you think drives the decisions to use those materials that we're seeing in the new houses being built right now in the Upper Range?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so a few parts to that question
Just that one there.
at the moment. So maybe I start with what do I think drives decisions for the materials we're seeing on houses right now. So to answer that, I need to say, well, what are we seeing in terms of materials on houses right now? We're seeing a lot of timber, but we're starting to see some of the more higher end materials of copper and zinc come into projects.
Okay. Yeah.
But we're definitely seeing a lot of brick back.
I've seen a lot of it.
That's
I love it.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and but there's a bigger picture on that too in Brisbane. I mean, we've got within all of the inner city Brisbane, we've got these strict character codes, and the character code doesn't like brick, for instance. So that's an interesting one in terms of how do we deal with that and how do we introduce that as a material, because brick is a fantastic material because it's so durable and low maintenance.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And then it's the same with these higher end materials, the copper and the zinc. Zero maintenance, last 100 years, and look fantastic. So they're great. Timber, look, it looks beautiful, but if I want to roll that into the sort of materials we use, we were very cautious about how we use timber because it is a high maintenance issue. So I think we've seen people use a lot of timber to clad their entire houses, and then you've seen them in 5 years and they don't look great because they haven't been able to either afford the upkeep or keep on top.
Is it very expensive to maintain that?
It is quite expensive to maintain if it's on a large scale. So you can use a little bit of external timber cladding near the entry of your house or around at the lower levels. That looks fantastic. It's easy to get to and repaint. That's not too bad. It might cost you, someone might have to come back once a year and you pay them $1,000 to repaint it. But start doing your whole house and you need someone to come back and scaffold the house and paint for, and it might cost you $20,000. So you've got to be really cautious about that. It looks fantastic, but as a practice, we're very cautious about the way we use that.
It's got a lot of wow factor, doesn't it?
It's got a lot of wow factor, but you'll see a lot of timber on our projects, but you'll generally see that they are maintained to lower levels where you can maintain it easily, or they're on ceilings, they're in soffits of outdoor rooms, because those are protected from the weather. But Brisbane has a context of lightweight construction, weatherboards and fibre cement. So, and our character codes sort of demand that. So we try to incorporate those elements to keep in context with Brisbane and its regionalism, the kind of regional influences that it has. So in our approach to building materials, it's about maintaining that context, it's about thinking about the maintenance of it, and it's about finding that composition of materials that kind of articulate the house nicely and at the end of the day, perform in the places they need to perform. We take a fairly wide-ranging approach. We don't rule anything out, and we
work with the client on it.
Yeah.
Work with the client. Got one more here for you, Tim. So, what is your philosophy regarding the character and heritage homes, and how does this affect the designing of homes? And how do you think that this approach is important for those companies or for owners considering buying or building?
Right. So inner city Brisbane, we've got a character code, and the character code stops us from knocking down any house that's pre-war, and then we've got some houses that are heritage. So a heritage house, that's pretty obvious, sort of really exemplar houses from the era. That you need to treat with a lot of respect. Character is a little bit different because it's a blanket throw over anything built pre-war. So amongst that are some great examples, and amongst that are some fairly average examples. That's just the way it is. But we take that approach that our architecture is more than just the one site. I mean, we're about communities and influencing communities and areas beyond just the individual client. So it's important to us that we respect that kind of character nature of the community.
Yeah.
So we will always try and maintain with a lot of sensitivity the character value of that house. We try not to go and change that too much from a street perspective. But the flip side of that is that we live in a new age. I mean, the types of building products, materials, technologies that we use today, and the lifestyles are totally different to them. So it's an important balance because I want our street and our community to have that character and not feel like it's been torn apart.
Yeah.
But I also, I want to be proud of that, but I don't want to walk into a house and it feels like a 1940s house.
Yeah.
Right? So
times have changed.
Yeah. So we use that, and that talks about materials as well. How do we sensitively incorporate a modern extension onto a character house?
Yep.
Well, we try and define what's new and what's old. So when I drive down a street, the last thing I want to see is a replica house, because a replica of the old times is just a poor example of what was built then and doesn't seem to make sense to me. It's like if you've got a good pair of shoes but everyone's wearing a rip-off, eventually the integrity of that good pair of shoes is lost. So we like to keep that integrity, demonstrate that we've maintained and looked after that, but also be able to clearly define what is new, and build that so that it suits our lifestyle and we can achieve all those things we want out of a modern house now. And then that starts to tell a story. So if you drive down the street, you'll see a house and you'll see, that's a 1930s house, but I can see that they've done an extension here, and we can see how times have changed and how people live differently. And I think that's part of the fabric of our community, is to see that story and that change and understand that, rather than just trying to pretend that we haven't added onto this house by putting a bit of a replica on the back of it. That's not our philosophy at all. So
no, look guys, look, there's been some great advice there tonight, and thanks for the people that shot the questions through. Thanks very much for that, and we really enjoyed having you on board tonight. Look, got some really good takeaways from that. With regards to some information from Tim. When you're looking, if you're looking to build your home or renovate, look for the voids. Look to get as much light into the property as possible. Look for space. and one that kept on echoing is, those ensuite bedrooms or ensuite guest bedrooms. So there's some really good information there. And as I said, please feel free to contact any of us if you do need more information. Guys, please go on and have a look at Instagram. Go on to, it's Tim Stewart Architects, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Instagram. Yep, so you'll get some great inspiration there. And of course, please feel free, to contact him. It's www.timstewartarchitects.com.au. Tim's a great guy, and as I said, he's doing a project, for Sam and I at the moment that we're doing, and he will be building our house or doing our personal house. So I can't speak highly of this gentleman, and not only is he the best architect going around, he's an all-round great bloke and good friend. So guys, I hope you've really enjoyed tonight, and I thank very much Tim. Thanks very much for coming on board, giving up his time on a Sunday afternoon. He's got a family and four children waiting for him at home. I know we're busy enough. Excuse to get out of it, mate. Feed it, maybe dinner time. So we
hang around a bit longer.
Might hang around for a beer. Yeah. No, we really thank Tim for his time and really appreciate it. And I'm sure everyone out there that's tuning in and will watch it and share it with their friends appreciates it. So guys, have a great week. Have a good rest of your Sunday night, and we'll see you next week.